Hey guys, TrueGreen7 here, and remember how a few months ago I made a video about Pokemon moves that were named differently outside of Japan? Well, today I'm going to talk about 10 abilities that have totally different meanings and implications as a result of their translation outside of Japan. For example, in English, Darmanitan's hidden ability is called Zen Mode, but in Japan it's called Daruma Mode, as a nod to the Darumas that the Darmanitan line is based on. To be fair, the following abilities aren't exactly mistranslated as a result of an error, it's just that the video wouldn't sound good if it was titled 10 Pokemon abilities that were named differently outside of Japan. And keep in mind that I'm only talking about English ability names that completely change the meaning of the ability. Just because the ability Iron Barbs is called Steel Thorns in Japan doesn't mean that there's any considerable difference. And I didn't forget any abilities, I purposely chose 10. Now let's get on with number 1. Arena Trap. It's an ability that prevents Pokemon from fleeing. It is only utilized by the Dugtrio family and was Trapinch's signature move before Fire Red and Leaf Green. In Japan, the ability is called Antlion, and wouldn't you know, Trapinch is based on an antlion larva, which are known to dig these sand pits that trap ants. And it's not a coincidence that Trapinch does the exact same thing. This gives us a better idea of this ability, as we know that Trapinch will attack from the center of his hole, and that its opponent would have a hard time crawling out of the pit during battle. This explains why Pokemon that are immune to ground type are not affected by this ability. Number 2. Sand Rush. The ability that boosts a Pokemon's speed in a sandstorm. Sand Rush is called Sand Paddle in Japan, allowing us to visualize how this ability works. The Pokemon that have the ability are physically able to paddle through sand in a considerable speed. But when you look at the only 3 families that have this ability, you'd understand why. Yep, looks like those claws would swim through sand. Yep, these hands were made to cut dirt. Good job. Next. Oh, I get it. The ability is called Sand Paddle, and it's a dog, so it doggy paddles. Haha, yeah. Number 3. Frisk. This ability allows a Pokemon to check its foe's item, which is pretty helpful. The act of frisking someone is basically patting them down like a policeman does to check for items under your clothes. But its original name is of an entirely different nature. It more or less translates to unobstructed sight or perspective, which means that the Pokemon doesn't literally frisk the other Pokemon, but rather that it's able to clearly see the item that it's holding with its wizard eyes. Which makes sense because all the Pokemon that have this ability are known to have some kind of supernatural power or abnormal and amazing vision, like Dusclops, Yanmega, Stantler, or Gothitelle. Plus, I don't really think a Stantler would be able to pat down anybody with its hooves. It's not very effective. Number 4. Sap Sipper. While in the game and anime, the ability is represented by the Pokemon basically deflecting grass-type attacks, the name also suggests that the Pokemon sips the sap. But in Japan, the ability is called Herbivorous, which just implies that the Pokemon eats plants. It makes sense because Pokemon like Girafarig and Buffalant have the ability. They're just eating grass, not sipping on sap. Ain't no sap sipping here. Number 5. Cloud 9. An ability that negates weather effects. In Japan, it's called No Weather, but there's a huge reason as to why this ability is named as such. The Japanese name of this ability is a double entendre, written and read as the Japanese words for no weather, but it also sounds exactly like the Japanese words for carefree, in reference to Psyduck, originally the only Pokemon in addition to Golduck that had this ability. The English name, Cloud 9, derives directly from the carefree meaning, while maintaining a weak pun to connect it to the weather, because the phrase Cloud 9 refers to a person who has no worries. I think this is some pretty clever stuff right here. Number 6. Pure Power. The signature ability of the Medicham family doubles their attack stat, and based on this family's nature, it's rightfully named Yoga Power in Japan. Number 7. Shadow Tag, which prevents the foe from escaping. Mega Gengar, Gothitelle, and Wobbuffet can have this ability. In Japan, it's called Stepping on Shadows. This may refer to shadow stepping, or instantly teleporting through shadows to appear behind an opponent as it escapes. This explains a lot about the Pokemon who have this ability. Number 8. Contrary. It is the ability that makes all stat changes have the opposite effect. A few Pokemon that deal with being upside down, dizzy, or sneaky have Contrary, which makes the name totally acceptable. But in Japan, it's called Devil's Advocate or Perverse. A Devil's Advocate is someone who takes the position that he or she does not agree with in an argument, just for the sake of debate, so they can further explore such thoughts. This can basically mean an opposite position accepted from the norm, which is what someone who is perverse intentionally does. This may also be a hint to superior being based on the serpent or devil in Genesis. Number 9. Battle Armor, which was once the signature ability of the Anorith and Kabuto line. This could explain why in Japanese it is called Kabuto Armor. Of course, Kabuto in Japanese means helmet or headpiece, which could explain why Cubone and Marowak have it as a hidden ability. Number 10. Desolate Land. Primal Groudon's signature ability evaporates water instantly and, as its name implies, can create a desolate land. But in Japan, it's called Land of the End, or End of the Earth. Now this is more important than you think. In Japan, Primordial Sea, utilized by Primal Kyogre, is called Sea of Beginning. Considering how Alpha is the first or beginning letter of the Greek alphabet, and in Alpha Sapphire, Primal Kyogre's ability, Sea of Beginning, will bring the Earth back to its original water-filled state, it's safe to assume that since Omega is the letter at the end of the Greek alphabet, in Omega Ruby, Primal Groudon could easily end the world as we know it with its ability Desolate Land, also known as
Land of the End.
Thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed, please make sure to check out my Mistranslated Pokemon Moves video to learn about tons of moves that were named differently outside of Japan. And also, if you enjoyed, please give this video a like and subscribe if you haven't. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, or Pokemon Amino, and I'll see you guys very soon.